Hero of Darkness. Chapter 1. A Man at the Edge. Winds howled along with the passing cold breeze. At the time of midnight, in the glitter of lights from skyscrapers and malls along with multiple vibrant neon signs, the city life kept running as usual. Amongst these sky-touching buildings and millions of people going about their lives, stood a man at the edge of the highest roof in one of such office buildings. He heaved a sigh, looked towards the bright moon and closed his eyes. Thinking and contemplating how and why his life came to be this way. Thinking to himself, Elric asked, "Man, why am I the only one living so miserably? Will anything for once go the right way for me? Why am I the only one always getting short end of the stick? It's as if the world itself is trying to tell me that I really don't matter at all." Reminiscing about his childhood, Elric remembered the young him when he was 12 years old. He was a good kid with a great talent for reading among other kids in his class. The teachers would always praise him for being quick to answers. He was always good at getting the pronunciation of words correct and could read a chapter from the book without running out of breath easily. But this made his fellow students dislike him at the same time. Some started bullying him as the days went on, and even when Elric asked for help from his teachers, no one helped him. Some saying it's just a small quarrel between children, while some intentionally trying to smother the incidents to avoid being accused of neglecting the students of their class by school management. So, Elric never got the help he deserved. When he told his father about how the kids at his school were bullying him, and even beating him on some occasions, instead of consoling his youngest son, his father reprimanded him to not bring such small matters into the house. His father worked in a manufacturing company for household appliances and had to spend many hours per day in the office as he was the manager of the department. So naturally, he was always tired and tensed up when he returned home. After holding his sobs somehow, Elric told his mother, Sophia, about the incidents. She told him that she would talk to his teachers. Elric believed her and decided to wait for tomorrow. But the next day, nothing happened. He still got beat up again. His parents had no time to listen to him. Even his older brother, David, whom Elric looked up to, told him to man the hell up. David was 17 years old and part of his school's baseball team. And due to his growth spurt kicking in, he often tended to be physical with his body and rash with his mind. He paid no attention to his younger brother as if it didn't concern him. Elric couldn't ask his elder sister Jessica, as she would get mad at him even if he mistakenly entered her room. She was very peculiar with her things, clothes and looks. And always spent a lot of time in front of the mirror for God knows what reasons. So after both his family and school staff failed to help him, Elric had no choice but to endure the harassment at school. Hoping that his bullies would get bored and not target him any longer. He even stopped being active with his studies and interacting with other students and teachers alike to not stand out. And later, when he went to high school, he adapted the same approach. But during these times, Elric did find something to keep himself busy with. He no longer held love for historical figures or whatever they taught in schools, rather in comics that he often read at the comic store a couple of streets away from his house. Somehow, these heroes from comics gave him a huge sense of belonging and an urge to be a better person. His favorites were Spider-Man and Batman. He would often imagine if getting bit by a radioactive spider will give him powers like Peter Parker, or whether he could find a mysterious clan of ninjas and martial artists who could teach him how to fight like Batman. But as all things come to end, so did his interests in comics. As Elric hit puberty, he became engrossed with the culture of anime, which was reaching a new horizon of popularity throughout the world. He would spend most time of his day watching them than studying for his class test tomorrow. Years later, he entered the world of novels and mangas. And like there are no exceptions. He got entangled in the web of addictive cultivation stories, Korean hunter manhwas, RPG and virtual reality game stories, and the ones where a good-for-nothing otaku gets hit by truck-kun and gets reincarnated or transmigrated into another world. But without realizing that he had spent these years distancing himself from his family and friends, he had become a loner who barely functioned in society. Spending so much time alone made him mentally become someone who liked being in solitude. Due to his innate talent for learning and remembering what he read instantly, his grade never fell below what was expected from him. Elric had realized to this point that he had the rare case of having what we call eidetic or photographic memory. He had the potential to become much more in terms of academic skills, but he simply had no interest in them at this point. His parents didn't care much for him anyway, only providing food and shelter out of obligation. He disliked both his elder brother and sister, who always had the halo of entitlement around them. He didn't have anyone he could call a friend at this point. As compared to his brother and sister, Elric was someone without great ambitions and only good enough to live a mediocre life. In the upcoming years, Elric finally landed a job as an accountant in a big-name company and got a good income salary job. He finally left his house and started living alone. Even when he had any conversations with his family over the phone, it'd be him who initiated the call most of the time. 4 years later. Elric was 30 years old today. He stood in a line inside a coffee shop to get his morning dose of cocaine. I mean caffeine. Today was his birthday, yet not a single person had wished him happy birthday. No one from his family called, he had no friends even in the workplace he was heading off to. There wasn't anyone who he interacted much with if not out of necessity, and barely anyone he could even express his thoughts to. Not even a friend online or a group of fellow nerds or otakus. He had outgrown all of them. His current state of life was completely stagnant and uneventful in the last couple of years. This hit Elric really hard. For the first time in his life, Elric had found himself completely alone. Both in body and spirit. This was something he yearned for during his teenage days. But now it suddenly felt terrifying and as if he really had nobody in his life. He didn't have a pet because they needed a lot of care, and Elric was indeed a man-child when it came to the responsibility of taking care of someone else. At the same time in the coffee shop, his turn came and he reached his hand out to grab the coffee cup. But he suddenly felt a warm touch in his palm. Excuse me, the coffee is in my other hand. A girl with bright blue eyes, blonde hair and a very slim-built body looked at Elric and signaled him to remove his hand. "Ah, my bad. I was lost in thoughts," Elric said. "Hurry up now. Other people are standing in the line." Elric came back to reality for real at this moment and quickly got to the side. He soon left for the office. He did notice the name on the girl's uniform before leaving. Catherine. After returning from the office and having dinner, which wasn't just a cup of noodles like standard Japanese mangas. Our boy knows how to cook. Elric recalled the event of touching Catherine's hand. For some reason, he just couldn't help but think about that moment again and again, over and over. Elric, being the virgin guy who never had a girlfriend, female friends or any form of physical connection to women throughout his life, got looped into that moment given how big of a simp he had become over this point for fictional women. The ideal romantic partner for people like him only existed in novelty. After overthinking it for a long time, he finally fell asleep and woke up the next morning to follow the same cycle of corporate slave life. His routine followed for the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, he'd casually greet Catherine with good morning and hellos. He had made himself familiar with her. And Catherine would greet back and sometimes even give him a soft smile, which always brightened up his day. Little did he realize that Catherine was doing it because it was part of her job to be nice to customers. But being the idiot he was, he felt like it only him getting the special treatment. A few days later, Elric stood in the same queue for his morning coffee. But this time, something was different in him. He wanted to make a move on a girl for the first time in his life. Elric thought to himself, what's the worst can happen? She completely turns me down. Or at most, I end up embarrassing myself in front of few people here. Ayo, why is this so hard? Elric was a total noob in this department. He had already prepared for the worst. After Catherine got free from her shift, which ended only after 10 minutes since Elric got his coffee, he came towards Catherine and asked her. "Hey, Catherine, do you have a moment?" "Yes, what is it?" "Oh, nothing. I just wanted to ask if you were free tonight." Catherine looked at Elric with surprised eyes. "And I assume you had some plans which depended on me being free tonight." Elric was startled. Have I been seen through? He gathered his courage and said, yes. I wanted to ask you out for dinner. Elric said with all his might. He sounded very calm and confident, as if this was a normal day-to-day thing for him, but inside he was like, fuck, fuck, fuck. I'm so screwed. But surprisingly, in the next moment, Catherine responded. 8 p.m., pick me up at Central City Park. I live nearby. Give me your phone number, I'll send you the address later. Gobsmacked. Flabbergasted. These words could completely describe Elric's facial expressions perfectly. He didn't believe what he was hearing at all. He expected an instant refusal, but surprisingly he wasn't. You're not joking, right? I didn't think you'd say yes. Catherine looked at him cheekily and spoke, I was actually waiting for you to ask me out. If you had taken even longer, I would have done it myself. Was this a dream? Nobody is playing a prank, right? Wait a minute. You were? Elric asked. Of course. Out of all these people, many who are regular customers here, only you look at me with puppy eyes whenever we meet each other in the morning. Don't think I didn't notice the smile you always have after you greet me. We girls have our own intuition too, you know. It was obvious that you like me. So I thought, why not give you a chance? Catherine said while throwing a smirk at him. Outmatched. Elric was completely outmatched. Why was the girl saying guys' lines and seemed to be in control of the situation? It was supposed to be his role. For the first time in his life, Elric questioned himself if he was truly a man. Okay, that's all he could come up with in response. And as soon as Catherine put her number in his phone, Elric quickly ran off from the scene like the Flash. Elric did not believe what happened a few minutes ago was real. He pinched himself a few times and even slapped his face twice to make sure he wasn't dreaming. He finally mentally prepared himself for the first date in his life. He knew that he couldn't afford to go halfway tonight. Because the first impression is the last impression when it comes to dates. Surprisingly, the date went well. Elric didn't hold back. He booked a reservation in a nice restaurant, took Catherine to a zoo before dinner, had fun with her while sharing their life stories so far. To his surprise, Catherine came from a poor family. She got the job in a coffee shop to support her expenses and was also taking some acting classes. Currently, she lived in a shared apartment with a few of her college friends. Catherine was 3 years younger than Elric, who lived alone and supported himself. So this earned his respect for Catherine. As to some men, self-dependent and hardworking women are much more reliable and have a strong character than daddy's little princesses on social media these days. After this date, things kept progressing between Elric and Catherine over the next few weeks. But one day, Catherine suddenly disappeared. She didn't pick up Elric's calls and even her roommates didn't know where she went. Elric, who was infatuated with Catherine at this point, felt like something was missing inside of him. For the first time in the past 2 decades, he felt loss and helplessness. Do I really care about her that much? Why do I feel so empty suddenly? Elric thought, but he couldn't put his finger on what was irking him so much. Obviously, he had fallen in love. Hero of Darkness. Chapter 2, The End. 3 days later, he finally received a call from Catherine at night. Hey, it's me. Where are you? What happened? Why didn't you pick up any of my calls? Elric asked. I'm sorry. It's been hectic recently. I just didn't have time to explain. Catherine replied. Now tell me exactly what happened. I at least deserve to know that, right? Elric said. Well, it's my dad. He. Catherine suddenly started sobbing and her words stopped coming out of her mouth. You can tell me, I'm always here for you. Elric said out of genuine worry. My dad has been diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. We just found out. He didn't tell me and my mom because he didn't want to worry us. And we don't have enough money for the treatment either. That's why he hid his illness. Catherine said and started crying loudly this time. I don't know what to do, Elric. My dad is dying and I really can't do anything to help him. I have no money, no insurance. Nothing. Catherine's sobs didn't stop. Elric was listening to this on the other side of his phone and felt as if his father was dying at this moment. Due to his attachment towards Catherine, he felt her pain as his own. He quickly replied. "How much do you need?" Elric asked. "What do you mean?" Catherine replied. "I mean, how much money do you need for your father's treatment?" "I can arrange for it. I'm an accountant, remember," he said with worry and care in his voice. "Around $30,000. The worst enemy of wrinkles. Read before the article disappears. Intenskin. Ads by PubFuture. Don't worry, I have some savings. I can help," Elric said with a resolute voice. "No, I really can't ask you to help me. We haven't known each other for that long. Even our relatives won't give us that much money even if we beg them. And I have no way to pay you back even in the next couple of years," Catherine said hurriedly. "It's okay. The truth is, I really like you, Kate. I know this is coming out of the blue and at the wrong time, but hear me. It's okay. I trust you enough to know that you won't cheat me. And I won't be able to sleep knowing what you're going through, and I could have helped. So please don't refuse," Elric said in a soft and gentle voice. After a few moments of silence, Catherine spoke again. "Elric, thank you. I mean, truly thank you. I had no way to get out of this. I knew you felt about me this way. The truth is that I really like you as well. But I never thought we'd be confessing our feelings this way. Yeah, we'll have that talk again when you're in a better position. Now send me your bank account." "I'll send the money," Elric said. He wasn't a dumb guy when it came to money. Aside from his groceries, rent and other taxes, he never actually had to spend much on anything. So in the past 2 years, he certainly made up some dough and did some side hustles for some private customers as well. If it was someone else, he'd go deep in first to see where his money was going. But for Catherine, blinded by his feelings and given the fact that she was the only person he actually felt a connection to in such a long time, he didn't think much of it and wanted to help her in her worst scenario. And appearing out as a hero who helped her family would also leave a deep impression on her parents if there came a day to meet them. Catherine sent him an account number registered in her name, and Elric transferred the money without a second thought. Over the next week, he didn't get any calls from Catherine. He thought it'd be bad to disturb her at such a time. On the 9th day, he finally decided to call her again to check up on her and her dad's condition. "The number you have dialed does not exist." Suddenly, the network voice call lady responded after he tried to call. Elric got curious and tried again. But still nothing. He found it odd and tried from his other number, which he barely used. So nobody knew his other number. But the same response came. He didn't know exactly which hospital Catherine was at, so he could only go to her apartment he once visited. But after talking with the landlord and her roommates, he found out that Catherine came to her apartment the very next day after he sent her the money. Paid her 3-month overdue rent, packed all of her stuff and left for good. Elric didn't believe what was happening around him. He chose not to believe it. He had been duped. He asked for an address from the landlord. And later he searched that address on maps only to find it non-existent. Her other information was obscure as well. Also, he found that her roommates weren't her friends from college, rather they met through an app used to search for renting apartments. There was really no other way to look for Catherine any longer. He quickly took a cab and went to the coffee shop he always went to. The owner was already familiar with Elric, so he offered all the information they had on Catherine. But to no avail, this was bogus information as well. "Where the hell did she go?" Elric shouted. He found it unbelievable that he was conned. It was one thing if she ran off out of fear of not being able to pay him back. But everything he came to know about her seemed to be a lie. Probably, Catherine wasn't even her real name. Nor did she have a dad with cancer. She seemed more of a professional than someone who did such a thing for the first time. He was nothing but a mark for her. After spending an entire day trying to find a clue for Catherine, Elric was exhausted and finally came back to his apartment. He was drained both physically and mentally. He was hungry but didn't have the willpower to eat something. He was still in shock. For the first time in a long time, he actually felt connected to someone. He'd go as far as to say he had fallen for her. And yet, in the blink of an eye, everything before him crumbled to dust. Everything was a lie to begin with. Finally, he fell asleep due to exhaustion. The next day, Elric didn't leave the house. He was still not over what happened yesterday. All his hard-earned money from the past 2 years was gone. And don't even talk about the emotional trauma that incident left on him. He called in sick leave for the next few days and contacted the police and filed a case. But there was barely anything he could offer up for investigation. He didn't even have a single photo of Catherine. All he could do was to hope for the cops to somehow find her. The next week when Elric returned to his job, everyone was sneaking glances at him. One of his colleagues came to him and said in a low voice, "Didn't take you for such a fool, Johnson. If you wanted to fuck a woman that badly, could have just hired a hooker." Ha ha ha. With a smug smile on his face, his colleague made the last part very loud for others around them to clearly hear it. "What do you mean?" Elric asked, astonished. He found that one of his colleagues was present at the coffee shop when Elric asked the owner about Catherine. And later news spread about how she was a con, which surprised many people including the coffee shop staff. But to have cherry on the top, her scamming Elric for $30,000 also got leaked. It didn't take much time for the news to reach his office. And literally, everyone in his department knew about his unlucky story. This put a lot of shame and mockery on his head. This was their chance to berate Elric with an excuse. Because Elric had always been a guy who got the job done at the right time and never actually refused a major task. He did win the hearts of upper management based on his track record alone, and they found him as a promising person to promote in the future. In a dog-eating-dog world, even a simple rumor is enough to drag down your name in the mud. And the truth doesn't even matter when that happens. Elric never entangled himself in these office shenanigans, but he too had his pride. He barely made it till the working hours ended. Every breath he took felt like an eternity. After the shift ended, he didn't immediately leave. He went to the uppermost rooftop of their building, which was around 32 floors tall, to get a fresh breath and cool his mind. The past week gave him the worst experience of his entire life. This hurt more than the beatings he got from the kids who bullied him in school. This hurt more than the look of disappointment his parents gave him. Never was his mental fortitude and his pride was tested up to this extent. Tears dripped down across his cheeks like a river. He had finally broken down. He could no longer tolerate how messed up, lonely and pitiful his life had become. He knew very well that his own actions played a very big part in it as well. He wasn't a hypocrite to blame it all on the world and play as the victim. But at this moment, he was simply clueless. He was lost, helpless, alone, desperate, yearning for someone to put a hand on his shoulder and tell him that it was gonna be okay. But there really wasn't anyone who'd come for him at this moment. Who'd he call? His parents he hadn't talked with in the past 3 months. His siblings who never actually had any form of bond with him since childhood. His fictional characters and idols he looked up to in his teenage days. Friends. What are those mythical creatures? A man, no matter where he fits inside a society, from someone working as a janitor to a multinational company's CEO, had their own self-respect and pride. But today, all of it was shattered for Elric. And he asked himself, "Man, why am I the only one living so miserably? Will anything for once go the right way for me? Why am I the only one always getting the short end of the stick? It's as if the world itself is trying to tell me that I really don't matter at all." At this very moment, he walked towards the edge of the rooftop. And looked down. Is my life worth living at all? Elric asked himself. The years of unhappiness, escapism, loneliness had brought Elric to this very moment. Catherine taught him that one life lesson, and breaking his heart was just a hole that let out the volcano that was under the ground from all these years. Her act was just an outlet. His state of mind would have shown up sooner or later anyway. Elric wasn't an emotional moron who did things based on a fit of rage. He has been a very rational person since his childhood. But his desperation took out the best of him. He had 2 choices now. Go back to his apartment, cry it out. Then continue his mundane life where no one would be bothered whether he lived or died. Where he is replaceable like a pen. Or do what he thought of doing just now. Because even if he went back, what was he gonna do? Find Catherine and get his revenge on her like some movie or novel story. He very well knew that it was no longer possible for him to find her. She probably did this to many others like him. He was a fool not to see through her act. And don't mention the work environment. From now on, no matter what he did or how well he performed at work, he'll always be used as a laughingstock. Even if he quit and went somewhere else to work, his lifestyle would be the same, just a different place. Elric wiped off the final drop of tear from his cheek. He found no way to move past his current mental state. He stood on the ledge and looked up towards the midnight moon. Only now did he realize that he had been crying and lamenting for nearly 7 hours now. He didn't even notice the flow of time. Elric Johnson took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He could feel the cold breeze trickling on his face and he said, "Man, what a pathetic life it was." At this moment, he let go of his body and jumped down. As his body descended from the tall building, the pressure of air at such height pushed his body like a kite. His body changed angles few times until it finally landed on the ground. Thwack! Blood, guts, bones and eyeballs splattered on the side of the street. A completely gory scene that even horror movies can't imitate came to be. Dozens of people who were walking across the same lane of the street were shuddering in fear and shock. Some women among the crowd started vomiting the moment they saw what was next to them. An old man among the crowd started calling 911. Quickly the cops patrolling across the street saw the commotion and started running towards the scene. Over that puddle of meat and blood, lied Elric Johnson, who chose to give up on his life rather than suffer any longer. To him, it seemed like the only way out. A man forsaken by the world and his kin died a tragic death. Never to wake up again. Hero of Darkness. Chapter 3, God of Darkness. In the void of nothingness, where the flow of time itself didn't exist and not even a ray of light could be seen. This place was neither heaven nor hell. It was just an infinite space filled with absolutely nothing, as if the concept of life and death did not exist here. Suddenly, a crack in space appeared out of nowhere. It kept elongating at an extremely fast speed, and in an instant, it stretched around 10 kilometers, and a gigantic figure sitting on a black stone throne which was no less than the size of a mountain itself emerged from the other side of the void. This figure was akin to the height of a couple of mountains, completely clad in majestic black clothes and had a hood on the head. Appearance-wise it resembled a lot to the Western look of death god or dealer of souls, like a grim reaper. Its face could not be seen, as if it didn't exist. It looked around for a moment and waved its right hand and created a space of its own, widening for a dozen kilometers and stabilizing itself like forming a gigantic barrier. An ancient voice, so deep that it could reach thousands of miles and decimate cities into dust, filled that entire space. Who should I pick this time? The being asked itself. Just a few moments later, a set of footsteps could be heard from the void crack behind the throne, and another being, which was completely clad in a red and black ancient armor, stepped in. There were 2 giant black swords that were big enough to cleave 5 stories building in two hanging on its back. The warrior-looking being's head was covered by a spiky and horned helmet. So whether it was a living being, an undead or a specter could not be guessed. The other being was half the size of the former who was sitting on the throne. It came in the front and kneeled in front of the gigantic being on its left knee, like how a knight would in front of their king. It spoke in a hoarse yet very authoritative tone. "My liege, it's about time. But I hope you reconsider your decision. We cannot make a mistake this time. Cravel, I know what worries you. We can't afford to have someone like the previously summoned humans like we did so many centuries ago. But do not worry. I have already decided upon a suitable kind of person for this task. But my liege, the one you've decided upon, does not possess any qualities we need to complete this mission. The ones that were brought from other worlds so far had an incredible talent for leadership, had unyielding willpower and wisdom to overcome any adversity that was thrown at them. And yet all of them failed. So what could the type of person you've decided upon even do? They'll die even before reaching halfway to their objective." Cravel gravelled in front of its master, yet the being did not seem to be concerned. "I understand your worries, but this is the exact reason I'm looking for someone who does not have anything in common with their predecessors. The being spoke and rested its head on its right hand. The palm of the being looked like something that was covered in black metal, and it had no flesh or any bones. The being spoke again, this time we need someone different and very unconventional. But my liege, this is probably our last chance. You will no longer have the strength to summon anyone again, not for at least the next 1,000 years. And by then, the other gods will have their own chosen ones complete the mission. It'll be a loss we can't afford at all. Cravel said with a grim face. My decision is final, Cravel. Sometimes, uncertainty can bring you wonders. This summon will be able to surpass those who came before him. The being said and didn't stand on ceremony any longer. God of Darkness waved his hand and a rift of the size of a kilometer opened inside the barrier they were in. And suddenly, millions of bright spherical white orbs with a blue hue around them rushed out from that rift. The ancient being simply glanced at all these orbs of light and its eyes shone. And a reddish wave of light swam across all the orbs and the being closed its eyes. After a few moments, it opened its eyes and waved its left hand again. Now let's see the most miserable ones with enough knowledge and experience to do our bidding. The being spoke again. In the next instant, only around 5,000 of these bright orbs were left. The eyes of this being flickered again as if it was trying to read and understand what was inside of these orbs. When it opened its eyes again, only around 100 orbs were left. My, so pitiable. Not a single one of these people ever accomplished anything in their lives. Well, good for me. Now let's see if I can find the most suitable person. The ancient being pulled these remaining orbs in its palm and kept staring at them as if it was analyzing something. A dozen seconds later, the being seemed surprised and exclaimed in joy. I found him. I found the perfect match. Cravel, who was still kneeling, sighed and shook his head. It's the end for us. He spoke to himself. The ancient being looked at the tiny orb, which looked like a tiny molecule compared to its size. He waved his hand again, the rest of the white orbs that came through the rift started returning at an unimaginable speed, and in just 10 seconds, only this one orb was left. I hope you don't regret this, my liege, Cravel said and looked at his master. Ha ha, you have no idea, Cravel. We've struck gold, the being said, and suddenly an archaic pentagram appeared below the white orb. And the white orb shone brighter and started expanding until it was of the size of a man. And it started shrinking in a vertical direction, 4 limbs started forming from it. 2 hands, 2 legs, a head and a #censored hash came to be. There was a human-looking face, but the outlines hadn't formed completely. The facial structure differed from a normal human face and looked more like a mannequin face. This human-looking figure started opening his eyes. Wake up, Elric. I'm the God of Darkness. And I'm here to give you another chance at life. The ancient being declared its identity. It was the God of Darkness who ruled over death and eternal abyss. The human finally opened his eyes. It was none other than Elric, who had committed suicide and ended his own life after suffering through many traumatic, heartbreaking experiences and one big betrayal throughout his life. The memories of all the noteworthy and memorable experiences of his previous life started coming back to Elric, and he didn't move a single bit. His bright body was currently floating in the air by force unknown. He clearly remembered that he died because the unimaginable pain he experienced when his body finally hit the ground was still completely fresh in his memory. He looked in front of him and saw a towering figure his eyesight could not grasp completely. The being calling itself the God of Darkness was so gigantic, huge and vast that even 100 Elric count did not even amount to its fingernail. He squinted his eyes as if trying to look at something that was placed very far away. Can you be any less bigger? I can't even tell how you look, asked Elric. Suddenly, a chaotic burst of deathly aura comes from behind him. And he looked back and saw another being half the size of the one standing in front of him, yet still very humongous and staring at him. The gigantic warrior-like entity stared at the human as if it wanted to cut the tiny being into millions of pieces. The red iris was visible through that giant figure's helmet, and an unimaginably horrifying pressure was exerted on the humanoid figure. You wretched human, how dare you speak to a god like my master in such a manner? You're nothing but a speck of dust, and yet to dare to ask a god to adjust himself to your level. Cravel said angrily. Leave it, he's simply not aware of what's happening now. He died just a few seconds ago. God of Darkness said, and quickly shrank his size in the next moment. The resized god was still the size of a 10-story building. He looked at Cravel and gestured to resize his appearance as well. Cravel on the other hand still kept looking at Elric with murderous eyes, but did follow his master's orders and become half of his original size. That was his limit. Elric let out a sigh of relief and looked at God again. Author, let's shorten God of Darkness to God, as it's kind of unnecessary to repeat over and over. What do you want from me? Elric asked. Elric, I'm the God of Darkness in my world. And I have a task for you. I want you to become my representative in our world and complete a mission. In return, I will give you a chance to live your life again as a human being. A new start where you are completely free from your past. God said, as if he was bestowing the world's greatest honor on Elric, and appeared very godly and magnanimous in his tone. Elric stood rooted on the spot for a minute and took a long breath before replying in a loud voice. Fuck off. Hero of Darkness. Chapter 4, The Task. Silence. Total utter silence. It felt as if even a man's heart could not beat at this moment. Elric's response left both God of Darkness and Cravel speechless. It struck them like an arrow in the throat, and both of them seemed to lose their ability to speak and think at the same time. A few seconds passed, and the God of Darkness stared at Elric with a gaze so deep and full of wrath, enough to kill anyone just by looking at them. Suddenly, an extremely horrifying aura exuded out of both God of Darkness and Cravel's bodies. Bang! Unimaginably horrendous killing intent filled the surrounding atmosphere and covered a radius of a few dozen kilometers. Even diamonds would be reduced to nothing but small granules under this pressure. Elric, the one being who was actually at the receiving end of it all, shuddered, and his soul form flickered again and again, as if his current form was simply getting wiped out of existence and brought back to life. To Elric, it felt like he had gone through thousands of deaths. This pressure he was enduring had destroyed his current form and rebuilt him again in a nanosecond, only to carry out the process indefinitely. After a minute of such a heart-wrenching scenario, God of Darkness and Cravel finally stopped excluding their killing intent and looked at Elric, who was barely keeping up his screams in. He just didn't get time to open his mouth and scream or wail. To be precise, he had indeed died few thousand times again in that 1 minute. But an unknown force kept bringing him back to his previous state. Elric had a hint of exactly what this was. It was the God of Darkness using his powers on Elric after his extremely rude and disrespectful response. God of Darkness retracted his gaze from Elric. It appeared to become extremely dim compared to before. God ruled over death and infinite abyss. He was a true god who controlled an aspect of reality. Then God gazed at Elric with a look of disappointment and spoke again. Never had I ever seen such an extremely impetuous human before. Even the other gods do not dare to talk to me in such a vile and disrespectful manner. Tell me, mortal, what makes you think I really won't wipe you out of existence or torture you for the end of time? God questioned Elric. Elric, who had finally gained control over his consciousness, looked back at God and responded, then why don't you do it? What makes you think I want to be alive? Just finish the job and end it for me already. Elric's answer left both God and Cravel speechless. Had their act of trying to put Elric into submission by making him experience death over a few thousand times turned him into a fool? Or had he gone senile from the pain and suffering to become a suicidal maniac? Cravel, who was rendered speechless by Elric since he had said fuck off, to God, looked at his master as if he was looking at someone who broke their favorite toy. My liege, are you sure you haven't destroyed his consciousness completely? Cravel asked. God was startled at this point and refused by flexing his hands around. Oi, what are you waiting for? Just kill me already. I don't want to spend another second looking at your ugly faces. Elric grumbled in a discontent tone. Ugly your mother, both God and Cravel said in rebuttal. Both of them looked at Elric as if he just killed their dog. Elric on the other end was surprised. These two ultimate beings killed him over a few thousand times for being disrespectful, but now they were suddenly throwing rude comments at him for calling them ugly, like little girls. Why was this happening? He just wanted to die again and be done with it. At the next second, however, God decided to end the charade and get back to business. Why do you not want to live again? Is it because of your past life experiences? He asked Elric. Yes. Who wants a second chance at life just to get used up by someone else again? I mean, whatever you want me to do comes with a price which definitely won't be beneficial to me at all. And why should I believe in anything you say? Let's save us all the trouble, send me back to being dead and find someone else who actually wants to live. Elric said with a bored expression. God and Cravel were taken aback again. So you don't want to live again, mortal? Do you not understand the opportunity my liege is offering you? Not everyone gets such a miraculous chance. Cravel, who refrained to be part of this conversation, decided to meddle in. Are you two morons dumb? Didn't you hear me the first time? Let me die, you bastards. Pick someone else. Why do you even need to listen to me? Just send me back. Elric gave his discontent. I can't. God finally spoke up. He shook his head and was trying to avoid direct eye contact. My powers allow me to control death and things that have no place in existence. I am a being born out of that very aspect of reality in our world. At most, I can summon the dead souls from other worlds like yours inside this world boundary and only keep just one of such souls in my possession, as the dead of other worlds are bound to their respective worlds' laws of reality. And even keeping one soul here takes an immense amount of my power. God explained the whole process. Elric looked at God as if he was looking at a liar. Not satisfied with his answer at all. But then he looked at Cravel, who was standing beside God's throne. And he too looked like that was indeed the truth. And what if I refuse to do whatever you said you wanted me to do? You'll at least kill me, right? Elric asked with an expectant expression. No, both God and Cravel shouted at the same time. Why? Elric asked. Because you're the only one we can rely upon now. And I can no longer summon anyone again for next few thousand years. God said. And why should I care? From the looks of it, it looks like some impossible job for a normal office worker like me. I didn't live a life of wonders and heroic deeds, you know. Why would you even pick me out of all the people you could have picked? Elric asked curiously. This didn't make sense to him, as God could have easily brought someone more capable and experienced for whatever job they had to be done. So why him? God, however, stayed silent for a dozen seconds and finally heaved a sigh. He looked at Elric and said, Because the task we're going to give you demands one being extremely aware and not trusting anyone. Because currently, all my representatives and anyone who was allied to me has been marked as someone who must be killed in the entire world of Vantria. Including those who once served or worshipped me in the form of cults, temples and churches. Said G.O.D. in a very disheartened tone. I wasn't even supposed to summon you myself. Normally, whenever a chosen one is brought from a different world into ours, they are summoned by the churches and the Empire who worship a particular god and follow their doctrine at the expense of hundreds of mages working together. But all my followers and anyone who had worshipped me were wiped out completely more than 200 years ago. And now, no one even knows that I exist. My name is nothing but a myth in our world at this point. God explained. Elric, who looked at both the beings in front of him with a suspecting gaze, still appeared to be uncertain and asked. So what do you want me to do? Build churches and temples for you, spread your divine teachings to the masses and bring you back to your glory days? Sorry, but I'm not a religious guy. God and Cravel both glanced at each other and gazed at Elric together. No, we don't want you to do something so arduous and hectic. We just need you to kill the demon god, said God with an embarrassed tone. As if struck by 1,000 bolts of lightning at the same time, Elric stayed rooted on the spot. He didn't speak or move at all. Only after half a minute, he was fuming with anger and shouted. You motherfuckers. Hero of Darkness. Chapter 5, The Reason. Silence. Another total silence. Kill the demon god. What the fuck? How was Elric going to do it? From what he heard God and Cravel say before, even those who came before him and also the chosen ones of other gods failed to do so, and probably they all died, including the previous summon who came before Elric. So how was he supposed to do it? Saving the world sounded good only when it was fictional or somebody else did it. Who would waste their life just so they could brag about it? Elric looked at the two ultimate beings who were standing in front of him. His expression was as if they killed his dog. Even Cravel, who was even sterner and stone-faced than God, looking the other way as if he was thinking the weather is very nice today. Both of them were beings who could destroy an entire country with just a wave of their hand, but now they were avoiding eye contact with a single human as they felt embarrassed for making such a request. God finally dared to look at him and asked, "So what do you think? Do you accept our proposal?" Elric shouted, "No, nahi, nay, nada, nako, ni, ie, ani, mayu." He refused in all the different languages he knew. He sat on the imaginary ground and held his head in both of his hands. He felt like dying one more time. He started hurling abuses at the two godly existences in front of him again. "Fuck you. Fuck your mom. Fuck your sister. Fuck your entire family." Elric kept rambling as he started cursing God and Cravel's 18 generations of ancestors. Unlike the previous time, both God and Cravel didn't exude any killing intent and stood there like little kids who were being scolded by their parents. All they could do was endure with their heads hanging down. After 10 minutes of rambling and cursing, Elric finally stopped as he was thinking of ways to escape his current predicament. "What if I don't accept it? You clearly can't make me accept by force, and that's why you need my approval," Elric said with a smug face. But God spoke again with a calculative expression on his face. "You're right. We can't transfer your soul into our world without your permission. However, it's not like you have any other choice either. We're currently inside the world boundary. Look at the dome around us. It's a personal space I created when I summoned the souls from your world. Without it, nothing is supposed to exist in this place," God said in a smug tone. "Doesn't that mean I'll die if I exit out of this dome?" "Works for me," Elric said joyfully. That was his main objective for now. To die for good. The next second, God shook his head and replied, "That's not how it works. Nothing is supposed to exist inside this place. If you exit the dome, you'll become part of the world boundary itself. And you'll be tied to it forever. You won't be able to leave, and you certainly won't die either. You'll be simply bound to this place for the end of time. Why do you think even a god like me had to create this barrier to protect myself?" Elric finally came to a realization. It all made sense. He looked around his surroundings again and saw that outside the dome, there really was nothing. No light, no land, no water, not even air, nothing. He thought he might cease to exist if he went outside, but after hearing God explain it, he found it believable. Why would a literal god like God of Darkness need to create a barrier and protect himself from this place? If he could enter it, he could easily leave as well. But if he did have the ability, he wouldn't need to create this dome and protect himself. If not being tied to this world boundary was an actual thing that would happen. If Elric went outside the barrier, he'll just become part of this place and exist here till this place was destroyed. Which was simply impossible and wouldn't happen in billions of years to come. And Elric would become insane here. This was literally a fate worse than death. Even the core of his soul shuddered with just a thought of it. He heaved a long sigh and came to terms with his current situation. He can't die, and can't leave this place either. The only way out was with God sending him to their world called Vantria. It seemed like he really did not have any other choice but to accept their proposal. "Fine, I'll do it. As much as I want to die, I don't want to be stuck here and wander till the end of time and go insane." Elric with discomfort spilling out in his voice. "Great. It's good that we've come to an agreement," God said cheerily. Even Cravel was nodding his head in joy. "But," Elric said and stopped his words. He looked at both of them and looked as if he was thinking about something very important. "Let me be straight. I don't want to work my ass off just to attempt your task. I mean, Demon God is also a literal god just like you, right? Elric asked. Not quite. God said as he continued. I and other gods are beings born out of different aspects of reality and laws of existence in our world. We each have perfect control over the laws from which we were manifested from. And we will continue to exist as long as our world exists. However, Demon God was born out of thousands of years of malice and hatred. He is an unnatural being and something that shouldn't exist. If not for the past 10,000 years of wars and bloodshed that kept happening in our world. Something like him wouldn't even come to manifest. He gave a helpless look at Elric and said, we gods can only represent a law of our world and have perfect control over that law. So we can't affect the world or intervene in it directly. We're more like an overseer at this point. And with different species in our world reaching the most prominent time of their civilizations, something like wars for survival, for resources and for the beliefs that were instilled in them by the gods they've worshipped till now, conflict was bound to occur. The past 5,000 years were a testament to its greatest impact in the history of our world. And the demon god, who was born as nothing but an anomaly in our world, kept feeding over it and is becoming stronger and stronger again. Even though he is still not even half as strong as any of the 12 gods. At this rate, we think it won't take him even next 100 years before he reaches to our level and establishes his law of existence into our world. God finally stopped explaining. Elric, who was a person with actual brains in his previous life, quickly understood what God was implying. He said, so if what you say is right, after he establishes his law of existence in your world, he'll become a literal god like you and the other gods. And will become an invincible existence. Impossible to kill unless one can destroy the world of Vantria itself. Which also means killing the other gods, including you, in the process. God looked at Elric in approval of his intellect. You were able to infer all that just from few words. He nodded and continued. But that's not all. Since he's an anomaly born out of war, malice and bloodshed inside the whole world. Once he becomes a god like us, he will keep getting stronger till the point none of the 12 gods can stop him. And unlike us, he won't be bound to follow the laws of reality in our world and will be able to interfere in it directly. He can simply wipe out all the living beings and reach to a height where even as gods would be nothing but ants in front of him. Said God in a worrying tone. Are you kidding me? How is that even possible? To reach a level above the gods? You're lying. Elric said with a curious manner. I wish that was true. But unlike your world, ours is filled with magic and natural energy so vast that even we gods can't completely control or contain it. And since we also represent different laws of reality, the world rejects us when we try to combine our powers and treats us like an external being. Like an outsider trying to enter your house. We've tried and failed hundreds of times already. And that's why, 3,000 years ago, we gods made a pact to find a solution to end it. And after decades of research, we found a way to summon beings from other worlds. God finally explained the exact reason why Elric was brought in here. So this was the main reason behind it. But I don't understand one thing. Why as humans? Because there must be other superior life forms in the multiverse, right? Elric asked. If I had not read your memories, I wouldn't understand what multiverse meant. God said and continued, the thing is, you humans from other worlds have the greatest affinity with the magic and natural energy of our world. In other words, you can become indefinitely stronger as you increase your magical powers and experience with time. You lot possess the potential to reach the same level as what you can call a demigod. Just like Cravel over here. God finished his words and pointed towards Cravel, his most trusted servant. So you're a demigod? Elric asked as he looked towards Cravel with a surprised expression. Yes, I am. But unlike you or the other chosen ones, I'm not from a different world. I was born in our world and reached the level of demigod by my own efforts. It took me thousands of years to accomplish that goal. But unlike the demon god, I'm bound to the laws of our world since I was a natural living being in the first place. So I too can no longer directly intervene in our world's happenings. If demon god was born in the same time as me, I could have killed him myself, but it's long time past that. Cravel said and shook his head as he was at a loss. After hearing someone so stubborn as Cravel, Elric understood exactly how grave matter it was. The world was near to an end, and the most supreme beings in it were helpless to do anything to prevent it. And the world itself was rejecting their intervention. It was a very complicated situation itself. No wonder even the gods had to rely on humans summoned from other worlds to do their bidding. Wait, I don't understand one thing though. You said all the gods agreed to kill the demon god together. But then why were your followers boycotted and now declared to be on the entire world's must-kill list? You're not hiding something from me, are you? Elric asked and looked at God of Darkness with a suspicious gaze. At his query, God looked at Elric with a helpless expression and said, "It's because among the gods, I and God of Light are the strongest. However, I represent death and the end of a living being's existence. And not many in the entire world would wish to worship such a god who thrives on deaths of world's inhabitants, right?" God said embarrassingly. "Out with it. The whole truth. Or you can forget about me accepting your proposal," Elric said in an angered tone. He was no fool. Where there was life, there was bound to be death. But that wasn't a valid reason to despise death itself, as it was part of a natural cycle of any living being. Even the most indestructible thing in the world would cease to exist after a time. So whatever God was telling Elric wasn't the complete truth. Or it was a complete lie to begin with. God was left speechless again. Why was this human so smart? Was it because of his past life experiences that he found everybody untrustworthy? Or was it because he was simply an overly cautious guy? He had no answer. "Fine, I'll tell you the truth," God said with a furious expression. "As long as it's the whole truth," Elric said in a firm tone. "It's because my eighth chosen one, the previous summon and your predecessor." God stopped his words and rested his head back on his throne as if he was lamenting on a bad memory. After a dozen seconds, he continued. "He killed all the other chosen heroes.